Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Valerie and for today's video I'm going to show you how to make a cargo skirt. We've already sewn cargo pants and now I've decided to make a cargo skirt. I'm really pleased with how the skirt turned out. I think this is now one of my favorite items in my wardrobe. So let's not waste any time and get started with the sewing process. To sew the skirt, you'll need the following materials: fabric, fusible interfacing, a zipper, and a button. First, we're going to print our pattern. You can find a link to the pattern in the description below. To assemble your pattern, first trim the edges where needed. Then tape everything together and cut out all the pattern pieces. Once you have all your pattern pieces cut out, you can proceed to cut out your fabric. Now we can start sewing. Let's start by sewing the darts. Match your markings by folding the dart in half and then pin it together up to the dart tip. After that, sew a straight line along the marked guideline. To prevent the dart from having a pointy tip, when I reach the end mark, I pivot the fabric and make a couple of stitches down along the fold. At the end, I don't backstitch, instead I tie a knot manually. After this, you can press the dart. And there you have it, a neat dart. Now let's move on to the fly front. First I interface the fly shield and fly facing. Then I take the fly shield, fold in the half with the right side in, and I'm going to sew a stitch along the bottom edge with a seam allowance of 7 mm. After that, I trim the excess, turn it right side out and press it. Now I'm just going to finish the curved edge of the fly facing and the straight edge of the fly shield with my overlocker. If you don't have an overlocker, you can finish them on the sewing machine with a zigzag stitch or an overlock stitch. I'm going to hide these thread tails using the darning needle. I insert the needle into the seam, tuck the thread tail into the eye of the needle and pull it through. And I'm also going to finish the inner seams of the front skirt panels on the overlocker. Then I'm pinning the front skirt panels right sides together. I prefer to make the fly front using the following method. From the top of the skirt down, I make a mark where my fly front will end. First I'm going to sew with a longer stitch up to this mark, then I'm going to do a back stitch and switch to a regular stitch. Then I press everything well. After that, I remove the stitching up to the mark. This stitch was only needed to press the seam neatly. Then I take the fly shield and place the zipper on it with the right side facing up. The end of the zipper should align with the end of the fly shield. We'll trim the excess zipper later, when we make the waistband. Then I align the zipper and the fly shield with the right side of the skirt. On the screen this is the left side, but if you imagine the skirt on yourself, it will be the right side. And I'm going to do a straight stitch, joining all three pieces together. By the way, I use a zipper foot when sewing this stitch, to get it as close to the zipper as possible. Here's how it looks. Now onto the other side of the skirt, I'm going to attach the fly facing. I line them together as shown on the screen and I'm going to make a stitch with a 1 cm seam allowance. After that, I'll fold over the fly facing and press it with an iron. Now we need to attach the zipper to the fly facing. I check to make sure that everything is aligned properly on the right side. Then I pin the zipper to the fly facing and I'm going to sew a straight stitch close to the zipper. I slightly trim the seam allowance of the fly facing. The final step for the fly front is to securely attach the zipper with a finishing stitch. I'm going to mark 3 cm from the edge and draw a line. The bottom of the finishing stitch can be rounded or straight like mine. However, don't make the finishing stitch too low, it should catch the zipper tails on the wrong side. And here's how our zipper looks as a result. I finished the rounded edges of the pockets on the overlocker. It's not necessary, just my fabric frays a lot. I transferred the pocket markings from the pattern onto the fabric. Now I'm going to line the pocket with these markings and make a straight stitch. I'm doing the same thing on the back of the skirt. After that, I finished the outer edge of the skirt on the overlocker. Then I press the pocket in the opposite direction. At this stage, you can also secure it with a finishing stitch, but I'll just stick with pressing. Then I place the front and back pieces right sides together, and I'm going to sew a stitch along the edge of the skirt and around the pocket with a seam allowance of 1 cm. I've reached the seam allowance for the casing, and I'll just continue sewing straight as if the casing isn't there. After that, I press the seam allowance with an iron. And of course, do the same on the other side as well. Now let's work on finishing the casing. We need to sew lines 1.5 cm from the center seam to create tunnels for our ribbons that we will thread through later. Sew the top line slightly above the end of the casing to leave openings for pulling the ribbons. For convenience, I'm going to mark chalk lines to follow for the stitching. Then I'm going to sew a straight line along the marked lines. This is how it should look like from the right side. We'll insert the ribbons into the casing later so that they don't get in the way. Let's move on to the side cargo pockets. I finished all the pockets edges on the overlocker and folded them by 1 cm, except for the upper edge, which I folded by 2. You can optionally top stitch it as well. I transferred the pocket markings from the pattern onto the fabric, and now I'm going to align the pocket with them and pin it in place. After that, I sew it onto the skirt. To prepare the pocket flap for installation, fold it in half with the right sides together and sew the side seams with a 1 cm seam allowance. Then cut up the excess, flip it right side out and press it. I've finished the raw edge of the pocket flap on the overlocker, and now I'm aligning it with the pocket and sewing a line 7 mm from the edge. After that, I fold it over and press it. Since this pocket is decorative for me, I've hand-stitched the pocket flap to the pocket to prevent it from opening and to hide the seam. Now we can join the skirt along the back seam. We'll have a slit at the back, so I'm marking on the skirt where it will start. I'm sewing from top to bottom with a regular stitch, and when I reach the mark for the start of the slit, I do a back stitch and switch to a larger stitch. Just like with a fly front, I'm doing this to ensure a smooth seam. Then I'll remove the stitching as well. After we've pressed the seam, I'm marking lines with chalk along which I will stitch the slit. I'll be stitching it 5 mm away from the seam. And now we can remove the basting stitch. Now we're going to move on to the waistband. I prep the waistband by attaching the inner facing using the iron to fuse them together. Next, I prepare the belt loops. I fold the loop piece in quarters like this. Then I sew lines along both edges of the loop. Now you have to decide where you want to place the belt loops on your garment. They are usually positioned along the waistband, evenly spaced. Then I like to stay stitch those belt loops in place. Now we can finally trim that excess zipper. I've overlocked one edge of the waistband, and now I'm attaching the waistband to the skirt. As you may have noticed, the waistband is slightly longer than the skirt. This is done to ensure there is enough space for stitching along the waistband edge. I stitched the waistband using an overlocker, but you can also do it with a straight stitch. Now fold the waistband right sides together, and I'm going to sew a stitch along the edge. Then I trim the excess and turn the waistband right side out. Here's how it should look. And now we're going to do a stitch in a ditch. Stitch in a ditch is a sewing technique where you sew along the ditches to secure layers of fabric together without adding visible stitching lines. This helps create a neat and subtle finish. I hand basted the waistband to the skirt to ensure the stitching turns out even. And now I'm stitching in a ditch. I recommend taking your time with this step for a neat finish. As you can see, my stitching is hardly visible and it cut the fabric on the wrong side. To finish off the belt loops, I sew the belt loop down, exactly what it is, about 7 mm from the waistband, to allow more space for a belt. And after that, I fold the belt loop up, fold it in, place it down, and sew it right on the edge. Then I cut off the excess. There are different ways to finish the hem of the skirt. I prefer to start by overlocking the edge, then fold it once and stitch. You can easily turn the hem twice and then stitch it. Now I need to sew on the button and make a button hole. I measure the button and make a mark on the left side of the skirt that matches its size. Using the buttonhole foot, I've created a buttonhole loop and now I'm cutting an opening in it. Then I sew on the button. And we're almost finished. Just need to thread the ribbons through the casings. For the ribbon, I cut long fabric strips that are 4 cm wide. I fold them in quarters and sew a line along the edge. Now I make 2 openings at the bottom of the casing. Using a safety pin, I thread the ribbon through the casing. I pull the ribbon through the top hole, insert it into the other top hole, and thread it all the way through. Then you can adjust the ribbon as you like and tie it. And our cargo skirt is done. I really hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want me to do any specific DIYs, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!